Call it coincidence or a twist of fate, two of the most iconic tablets of this year were announced within a couple of weeks of each other. First up, we had the chance to see the new updated Apple iPad Pro in action, which was announced back on the 7th of May. After that, we got ourselves the new Microsoft Surface Pro 11 announcement, carrying Microsoft's new Copilot Plus designation on the 20th of May, which is expected to ship in by June. While Apple armed the new iPad with Apple's latest silicone chipset, the M4, along with a bunch of new features, the Surface Pro 11 has its own tricks up its sleeve. Question is, if you're in the market looking to buy a new tab with these two being the most obvious choices, which one would be the right pick for you? Well, why don't we find out in our video today? The Surface Pro has always been the go-to option for people who prefer to walk around with a PC, but not a PC, you know? It's like, is it a tab? Is it a PC? This question was the main reason behind the emergence of Surface devices, and it hasn't changed one bit. With two separate versions to choose from, the Surface Pro 11 this time around brandishes the powerful Qualcomm Snapdragon X Plus with 16 gigabytes of RAM and an upgradable SSD storage that can scale up to 512 gigabytes. While the OLED version is definitely the one we'd choose, this feels like the more premium version of the bunch, especially considering the upper echelon Snapdragon X Elite and a hefty upgrade in terms of RAM and storage. From Apple's end, they also followed suit with two separate variants with a tandem OLED display, and inside the tablet, the specs differ as well. If you prefer the lightweight variant and feel like skimping off the money Apple already takes a bunch from you anyway, you could go for the minimized 512 gigabyte variant that packs a 9-core CPU, 4 and 8 gigabytes of RAM. Now, if you're feeling like splurging on the other hand, and a king's ransom is just an errand to you, you're better off with the 1 and 2 terabyte variants. When we do a direct comparison of the price tags, you can see how both of these fine-looking tablets come with a rather intimidating price tag, with the Surface Pro being available with more RAM and less storage, and vice versa with the iPad Pro. Each of these tabs needs careful consideration in order to ensure the right combinations of chipsets and RAM. But it's not really that easy with technology like this, as you gotta keep in mind the price of accessories as well. Consider the Surface Pro Flex keyboard, which costs a staggering $350, and the Surface Pen 2, which costs $100 more. Yes, we know. But it doesn't stop there, cause from Apple, you also gotta consider the Magic Keyboard if you even remotely feel like being productive, and gotta spend an extra $299 for the 11-inch model, and $350 for the 13-inch size. Oh, did we forget to mention how the Apple Pencil will cost an additional $99? Guess what? Apple didn't. However, most of you, not unlike us, will make your decision based on the operating system, as it has the potential to make or break the deal. Microsoft's attempt at reeling in their customers this time around is Windows 11 on ARM, a variant that's exclusively custom-made for Qualcomm Snapdragon X ARM chipsets. Windows 11 on ARM is pretty similar to Windows 11 for Intel, other than the fact that the apps need to either run natively on the Qualcomm chipset or through emulation. It still remains to be seen how well these apps run in emulation and how well Windows on ARM supports the variety of peripherals available for Windows 11 on Intel, so it's a bit of a gamble. From Apple though, it's no surprise. And one of the main reasons for most of you to go for the iPad Pro in the first place is the proprietary iPadOS operating system, which is more similar to iOS on the iPhone rather than macOS on Apple's MacBooks, which roughly translates to a system that's tailor-made for touch panels, and for that reason lacks the same file management and peripheral support as a full-fledged OS, while running a completely different set of apps. Everything you'll experience on the iPad Pro has been optimized for Apple Silicone, which means there's little to no concern regarding how well iPad apps will run on the M4. Now let's put the basic operating systems aside for a while and take a look at the devices themselves. First up, they're tabs, so there's not really anything more to say about it, and both of them look nothing out of the ordinary idea of what a tab device would look like. I mean, both of them are reasonably thin, come with black display bezels, and has a similar metal frame on the back. However, there is room for customization in terms of color, at least with Microsoft, as you can easily pick from Platinum, Black, Dune, or Sapphire. Apple, being the edgy tech icon as always, preferred to keep things minimal and single palette with the option to choose from either silver or space black. While both of these tabs claim to be crafted from the best materials available to mankind as of right now, you might be wondering what could be the differentiating factor. Look right here. At the back of the Surface Pro comes an integrated kickstand that pulls out from the back and extends to nearly vertical to wholeheartedly flat. While a lot of people might enjoy the convenience of having a kickstand, as it does come with the perk of giving you the ability to lounge anywhere you want and enjoy an episode of your favorite show, Apple apparently thinks it a design flaw, tampers with their own view of clean and minimal aesthetic, and we all know how seriously Apple takes their outlook. The iPad Pro, on the other hand, is unable to do that, giving bonus points to Surface users as they can use the tab on a Surface, pun not intended, without a keyboard attachment. The bright side of this, however, is your tab, in classic Apple fashion, remains one of the thinnest and lightest techs you'll carry, so it's pretty much up to your preference. The display of both these tabs also comes with a dealer's choice option, where the Surface Pro can be either configured with a 13-inch 3x2 2.8K IPS display or a 13-inch 3x2 2.8K OLED panel, and both will run at 120 Hz. The iPad Pro, on the other hand, comes with one display in either 11 or 13 inches, and it's a tandem OLED panel running at 4x3 2420 by 1668 resolution for the 11-inch variant, and a 4x3 2752 by 2064 resolution for the 13-inch model. In layman's terms, both displays can provide a similar level of sharpness, with the iPad Pro being a more favorable option for those who prefer a bit of a square aspect ratio. However, if their brightness is any indication of their future, Apple is having a field day, as the new iPad Pro can provide a remarkable 1600 nits, which makes the 800 nits from Surface Pro's OLED panel weak, and that's a broad statement. Anything else without competition, Microsoft would have aced this segment, but it's hard to compete with something light years ahead. But there are some perks that come combined with this nerf. The fun part about not having a massive power output and flexing your fancy tech is it takes less toll on your device, which translates to better battery life. The IPS display on the Surface Pro will likely provide a better battery life while sacrificing HDR. Hey, you win some, you lose some. In terms of battery life though, considering both of these tabs use highly efficient ARM chipsets, both of them should be on almost equal terms, and it's hard to come to a concrete decision without running our own tests. However, according to Microsoft, the Surface Pro will achieve up to 14 hours of local video looping, while the iPad Pro promises up to 10 hours. While the Surface Pro comes with a considerably larger battery than the iPad Pro, especially in the OLED version, it's not surprising to assume how it'll win the battle of batteries. As we already mentioned several times over, at this point we'd completely understand if your patience is running thin, but pretty sure it's not as thin as the iPad Pro, as it's more lightweight compared to the Surface Pro, which can be even more shrunken down, with an 11-inch model, of course giving it massive points for portability. Now of course if you add accessories, it'll add to the weight and thickness, but it's hard to see anyone who prefers to use Apple devices and rely that much on accessories, which gives Apple a solid lead in terms of portability. Now the choice between these two devices depends heavily on your preferred operating system and usage needs. Consider the Surface Pro if you prefer the versatility of Windows 11 for traditional desktop-grade productivity. Or if you're more into the optimized iPadOS experience for content consumption and creative tasks within Apple's ecosystem, the iPad Pro will be a no-brainer. You should also consider the superior OLED display from Apple that gives it an edge for multimedia, but do keep in mind the integrated kickstand from Surface Pro for a better sense of ergonomics. Ultimately, if you're a Windows user who focuses on productivity, should prefer the Surface Pro, while Apple enthusiasts and creatives should consider the iPad Pro. Could you imagine which one of these we prefer? Let us give you a hint. The apple doesn't fall too far from the tree.